We on? Great. Well, we are at episode number 5 podcast with Jami Kiff. And Jami is number 6. We have Jake in studio too. Jake's our fact checker.
Number 6.
Okay,
we'll take it.
The first one was with me, so I don't really feel like that counts. But anyway, Jami Kiff is a 8th grade school teacher here.
Correct.
Junior high.
Yeah.
And she is our first woman on the podcast.
Let's hear it for the girls.
So for the girls, you speak for all women. So just no pressure today.
I'm apologizing now.
All right. Well, let's, I told you testimony first. Let's just talk about summer. How's your summer going with COVID and keeping life sane?
The summer's been great. Both boys have been home. So that's been a sweet bonus.
Yeah.
Wilson and I took our annual trip to San Diego, just the two of us. It wasn't a family trip, but we got on a plane like a month ago.
Okay. The COVID too.
I don't know what anybody wants to say about that, but yeah, we had our masks on and we flew and we lived to tell the tale.
Okay.
And we're headed to Tahoe this weekend.
All right.
A little getaway for Martin because...
For Martin or from Martin?
4.
Because
he's had no vacation. So we're going to go play golf.
Oh, good.
Well, I say we, they.
They.
I'm riding in the cart.
Oh, you ride along.
I'm a ride along.
You're the caddy.
Yes.
No.
I'm the team captain.
Team captain, yes. Who's the best out of the 3?
Oh, now that is a really good question because they have gotten to be
pretty competitive.
Pretty even.
Okay.
I'm going to go Martin.
Martin's the best.
Lucas will tell you he beat him last time they played.
Okay.
But it was a bit of an anomaly. I have to,
Okay.
Yeah, but Wilson ultimately will be the best, I think, out of all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's my prediction.
Yeah. All right. So this weekend could be a big deal for the Kiff Invitational.
There could either be blood.
Okay.
Family feud. Or it'll be joyous. I don't know what it's going to be.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
3 competitive boys and me.
Is it a long course? Where are they playing? Do you know?
Nokomis? Dragon? Something dragon.
They're pretty long courses up there. I'm going to go with Lucas on this one.
Okay.
Because Lucas, I think, can drive pretty well.
I agreed.
So that's my take.
Okay. I'll let you know.
Who are you going with? Martin?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Martin.
Okay. All right, Willie.
Sorry, Willie.
Sorry.
I think Willie could squeak it out. He'll be the wild card.
The wild card.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Good. So let's, I'm glad you're having a good summer and amidst all this craziness. You want to share your testimony a little bit, how you came to Christ and a little about your life?
Yeah, sure. So it was kind of interesting with my family. So I grew up in San Diego. I'm the oldest of 3 kids and we're all just 18 months apart. So when I was in high school, I grew up going to a community church. Like we went to church because you go to church on Sunday.
Okay.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Super awesome parents, very moral people, but not believers in the sense that we understand that to be.
Okay.
So in high school, we started going to a Christian church. How that happened, I don't even know. We met in a elementary school auditorium, is where the pastor was preaching. And I would say I bet we'd gone maybe, I'm going to guess, a year. Within a couple weeks of each other, all saved. Just one after another. So it was fun because we all became Christians at the same time. My parents may be a little bit earlier than that, but it was a 5-for-1 deal. Wow. We all just came to know the Lord. It was just, he just revealed himself to all of us at once. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But I was in high school. So that's an interesting time to become a Christian. So I was typically good person, but didn't make really good choices a lot of the time. Okay. So there was that struggle. Now what I know versus I know what I should be doing, what I'm doing. It was interesting. And then not long off to college. So I think when you hear the truth, you just know the truth. When God's ready for you to open your eyes. And it was just obvious to me at the time. Yeah. Did Campus Crusade when I was in high school. So our Campus Crusade leader came and led a Bible study on campus. That was awesome.
Yeah. Now still in San Diego.
Still in San Diego. Yep. So that was really wonderful. It was a great foundation. And then went off to college and dabbled a little bit in some of the Campus Crusade. We had a little bit I went to a little bit of Navigators on our college campus.
That was Cal Poly?
Cal Poly, yep, in San Luis Obispo. Made some really great Christian friends, But I would say I still kind of walked a fine line between knowing what was right and always doing what was right. And I think that by the time I was probably newly married, I really, really came to understand what it meant to be really a committed Christian, and the really the sacrifices sometimes you have to make the right choices. And when I got married right out of college, and Martin was a believer at the time, too, and is, not like it changed, but so that was the first Christian young man I had dated. So that was different. So it was great to start off our young life being committed and being committed Christians. And I think that's what I really started to understand as a newly married person, what it meant to make the choices that were honoring to the Lord. You know, it was just different, a different maturity. I think I kind of came into that maturity. So
we live on the edge, that edge of kind of, I think, high school, college, kind of where can I get to? Where's the line sometimes? And that's not really the best place to be. But I think even my own thinking, where's the line for me as a pastor?
Sure.
To, if I do this, could I still be a pastor? You know, so I still live on that line a little bit.
For sure. Well, and I think it's one of the reasons why I love teaching junior high is...
pull back the line.
Yeah. Like,
help them to see the line.
Exactly. Like there's a line. Sometimes I don't think they really know that the line is getting closer, maybe.
There is a line, yeah.
There is a line. And it's not if you're going to find the line or if there's going to be a line. It's like, there's a line.
Yeah.
So we got to get ready.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And real quick, too, I want to just let our audience know, whoever's listening, thanks for listening. We're going to talk about Jami's testimony, career path and education, her experience at Windsor Christian Academy, working at a Christian school, some of the pros and cons of that. She's also on the Healdsburg School Board. So why would anybody in their right mind want to be on a school board, especially in the days we're living in? So we'll talk through that.
Sure.
And people, and then we'll talk about raising boys. So Jami's raised a few boys. So we'll talk about that as well.
We'll confirm the number.
At the end, yes.
At the end.
So you got to hang in there. So, okay.
That's our cliffhanger.
So you met Martin at Cal Poly.
We worked together when we both were at school in San Luis Obispo. Okay. Correct.
Where were you working?
The recreation department. Okay. So he organized youth sports, and I led trips and did special events. And our boss set us up. I needed another person to go down to, we went down to LA. I led a trip to LA for a basketball game and needed another chaperone.
Okay.
So that was it.
And there's Martin.
That was it. Yeah. There we go.
All right. And so we'll talk about Martin here in a little bit. But okay, cool. So career path.
Yeah.
So Cal Poly, what was your major? And then kind of how, because I know you were teaching at the junior college a little bit too, and then you were children's director here at the church a little bit, and now teaching. So kind of walk us down that road, your career path road.
The windy road.
Windy. Straighten it out for us.
I will. So at Cal Poly, I was a private and commercial recreation major. So I had classes like windsurfing.
Nice.
Yes. Event planning.
Did you actually go out and windsurf?
Yes.
You had to learn.
It's very hard. We did it on the lake, so no one died.
Okay.
Yeah, Laguna Lake.
Okay.
That's where I learned to windsurf. And that's the only time I've ever done it because it was
just in the class.
It's a big learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an awesome major. I loved it. So I went into after I graduated, I went into hotel management. So I managed a really neat hotel in San Luis Obispo. Not the whole time. I wasn't the manager, but I worked at the same hotel for 7 years. Ended up being the general manager at the end of it all.
Whoa. What do people not know about hotels?
There's nothing creepy.
Nothing creepy?
No, I don't have any secrets.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I don't have any dirt.
Okay.
I don't. It was a really nice hotel.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. So I don't have nothing. I got nothing.
All right.
So then when shortly after I graduated, I went back and got my master's in education. So education administration at Cal Poly.
Okay.
So I got married right after I graduated in June, got married in December, went back to school probably within a year or two because I eventually wanted to work on a college campus in student services of some kind. Okay. So Cal Poly has an awesome outdoor recreation program. Mm-hmm. So They plan trips, they rent gear, that kind of thing. I was in student government, so working with student government would have been fun, that kind of thing. So that's where my mind was.
Okay.
So
What'd you do in student government?
I was on the Associated Student Council.
Okay.
So I worked on a team that kind of managed what went on in the university union. Speakers that we had come, special events that we had. So that was what I did. Yeah. So that was my plan. And that's why I got my master's in education, was to work on a college campus. I didn't end up going that route, but stayed in the area, stayed in hotel management. And then we moved up to Healdsburg about 7 years after we were married, after we had our first child, after we had Lucas. So that's why I got my undergraduate and my graduate degree, both at Cal Poly, and why it was in why it was in education. Okay. Not intending to go into teaching. However, my wise mother said, you should get your substitute credential. It's really just a certificate, so that if you ever want to substitute teach, you can do that. So when I came up here, I actually got hired on at the Santa Rosa Junior College because I had my master's in education. Started teaching in the work experience program as an adjunct faculty. So it's a part-time faculty. You're not on campus. You work affiliated with the college. Students that are working and getting credit for their job. It could be any job. They could be working in medicine as a tech. They could be working at Starbucks. Doesn't matter. They get general education credit for working. So we become their teacher for the semester. Okay. And I still do that. So it's going to be 24 years. Okay. So I still do that. So those education doors just started opening. So what
do you do with it though? Like, do you just say, oh, you work today? Cool. Or are you guiding them? Are you meeting with students?
So we meet with our students at least twice a semester. Okay. At the beginning of the semester, we meet with them and say, okay, let's establish what your goals are going to be at your place of work for the semester. And they set usually 4 goals. Here's the goal. Here's how we're going to measure it, that kind of thing. Here's why we chose it. Here's the skill we're working on, that kind of a thing. And then they work on those goals throughout the semester. We meet again at the end of the semester, and we evaluate the progress that they've made on that goal. They evaluate themselves, and their supervisor evaluates them. And I just kind of facilitate that discussion. Yeah, that's great. Then in the meantime, there's assignments that the student has to do that I look at and grade. And so there's things they're doing, but we meet only in person twice. And it's mostly goal setting. And just sometimes it's teaching the kids sometimes their goal is to be on time. It could be that. Or it could be to be able to, cross-train in another department that they want to be in, or, so we set goals for how are we going to set yourself up to get the experience you need to do that, whatever it is, they get to pick their goals. Okay. Yeah.
So let me ask a provocative question concerning that. Yeah. So millennium generation, a lot of people think they don't work hard. They play video games, they sleep in and live at their parents' house till they're 30, right? So what do you think about that? Because you're working with this generation, you see what they're doing for work, and have you seen shifts? Is there a systematic problem going on? What are your experiences with millennial generation?
I would say that what I've seen over the past 20 years has stayed pretty consistent. However, if a student is kind of deficient in some of those kind of adulting skills, let's just call them, they're
adulting. That's a new verb. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to call adulting.
Yes.
Yeah. They're really deficient. It's like they're not, the kids used to be like, oh, let's kind of get it together. Now we're like, okay, we need to talk about this. We need to. So I think there's a disparity in when they're at that, maybe that lack of skill, they have much less of the skill than what they had maybe 15, 20 years ago. Does that make sense? So you still have kids that aren't on time. We still set goals. Let's be on time for work. But it might have been a student that was, I try to be on time, but I'm just usually a few minutes late. Now it's like, I really don't want to sleep through my shifts anymore. So I think that's kind of an example. But all in all, the kids we're not going to heck in a handbasket because of the youth. What I find, and we can talk maybe more about this when we get to education here and now at this age, junior high, high school, is the attention span of kids. That's where I see we have a problem.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So Dave Ramsey, are you familiar with Dave Ramsey a little bit? So I liked his take on the millennial generation, and that the good thing about it is, in this generation, whether people are workers or not. Mm-hmm. And I guess in past generations, maybe you really didn't know until you hired somebody, but now you really know if people really want to work or not. There's kind of a divide there that's easier to see than before, maybe. So
I think the standout students really stand out. I mean, and I think maybe that's a better way to look at that. When I look at my bank of students over the last, couple years, handful of years, the students that stand out are really stellar. Mm-hmm. So instead of looking at the deficiency end, there's always that deficiency. Mm-hmm. But the kids that are standout are really standing out. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because they've really learned how to work harder, or they're kind of separating themselves from the crowd. Mm-hmm. So I think there just seems to be more standouts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that goes along with what Dave Ramsey's saying.
Yeah.
Too, I think.
Yeah.
So we're still on career path. So we got a little derailed.
Yes. Yeah. So I did the JC, and then, I worked for 7 years down in San Luis Obispo after we got married. We waited to have kids until we decided that we waited to have kids until I didn't have to work.
Okay.
So that was our conscious decision. So that was 7 years, which is kind of a long time, for a lot of, I was 30 by the time on purpose.
We made that conscious decision too, and then Jill got pregnant. So
we can talk about that later. So then we moved up here, and this is where Martin really wanted to be, was up in Healdsburg. His family's here. His parents run a small farm. His dad has since passed away, but the purpose was to move up here and to be a part of that, knowing that eventually that was going to be a lot of work for just his parents. So we built a house on their property. And I didn't work. I didn't work until my oldest was in third or fourth grade, going into fourth grade. So then I started thinking, well, maybe I would like to work part-time. So I have 2 boys. They're 3 years apart. Mm-hmm. Did some substitute teaching. So there's that substitute certificate coming in. So I did quite a bit of substitute teaching at Healdsburg High School, where my father-in-law worked. So when I had my name on the board, Mrs. Kiff, as your substitute, I would get this, especially if I subbed for my father-in-law. Mm-hmm. And they had a hard time putting that together. But they were always pretty good because Joel ran a tight ship. And so they knew the odds were pretty good. It was going to get back to them if they didn't keep their nose clean. So I did several years of substitute teaching, which I really did enjoy. Eventually started working here at our preschool part-time when my kids were both here at school. And then when both of my kids were here full-time, the 8th grade position became available, and I applied for it.
And you were children's director for a couple of years. Yeah,
so that was, so that was in between working at the preschool, children's director here, back to, I think here. I think the academy.
Yeah. Yeah. I still really haven't gotten over that yet, but you're still at the same church, right? We're still still on the same team.
And I loved children's ministries. What I didn't love was I loved VBS. I loved when we had VBS. Yeah. But that was my time with my kids at home, the summer. And so really that's what kind of was the game changer for me. Is as much as I loved doing VBS, I got spoiled having my summers with my kids. Yeah. So, but I loved children's ministry.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of still in it. It's just a different.
There's bigger children.
Bigger. Yep.
Yeah.
13-year-old.
Bigger children.
I have my son going to be in 8th grade this year. So we're.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm trying to be nice to his teacher. Great. All right. So let's jump into Windsor Christian Academy.
Okay.
And so you've been here at the academy. So that just so people listening, we have a church, and then one of the biggest ministry of our church is our school. And so we have about 300 kids here, and from preschool to 8th grade. And so it's a really cool ministry. God's really blessed it, preserved it through the years. So you tell me, how long have you been teaching 8th grade now?
I think if I'm right, I'm going into my 14th year.
Okay.
As an 8th grade teacher.
Okay. So I'm going into my 14th year as pastor. So I think
close.
you transitioned the same first year I got here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Dean was here when I started Grotsky. Maybe it was just at the preschool.
At the preschool, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So 14th year is 8th grade.
Yeah, 14th year is 8th grade.
Teacher.
Not counting preschool.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And let's start with the pros. What are some things you really enjoy about teaching here?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love junior high. I think they're the bomb diggity. I just love them.
Okay.
They're hilarious. They keep you on your toes. They keep you laughing. I can't imagine teaching anything else. My very first substitute job, I was a kindergarten substitute. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll eat broken glass because I will never. I was totally ill-equipped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
God bless those people that can do that. I mean,
I'm in awe.
it's amazing.
I'm in awe.
Yes.
Yeah. So I love junior high. I think they're the best. Windsor Christian Academy, their strengths. I think what our greatest strength is, I think we have two. One is the way we build relationships with our students. So across the board. That is paramount.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to really know the kids. We have the benefit of having them, especially like for me, for 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
As an 8th grade homeroom teacher, I have the kids for 6th grade English, 7th grade English. By the time they get to me for 8th grade English, I've got their number, right?
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think we do an outstanding job of building relationships and helping those kids know that we love them unconditionally.
Mm-hmm.
I tell them, I don't always like you, but I always love you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very frank with them about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the way we build relationships is outstanding at Windsor Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that we, throughout our day, throughout the subjects, throughout the situations we face, show them who Jesus is.
Mm-hmm.
And we get the chance to, and for me, one of the reasons why I love junior high is I get to share with the kids and help them to really understand how they are made in God's image. It's like being an image bearer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not too long ago, I think I heard you say something about
Okay.
that. That, you're created in God's image and you need to hold on to that. Like that is a precious nugget that you need to need to know that. You need to put it on your, in your rear view mirror when you start to drive. You need to put it on your mirror at home. You need to know that, and you need to be remind yourself of that because it's going to become really, really more and more important as you get out of junior high into high school into college.
It's like you need an image to show you're an image bearer.
You totally do. And so you need to know that you're a child of God's and that He loves you unconditionally, but you also need to then grow into that responsibility of what does it look like to be a professing Christian. And that's another thing I love to talk about with my class is, God loves you unconditionally and He accepts you the way you are. And when you accept Him into your life, I mean, the angels are singing and me too, but there's a responsibility with that as well. So there's that, yay, I'm, God's child, but I'm a child of God. So what does that look like when I live it out? So, so those are the things I love about Windsor Christian, the relationships, the chance that we have to share who Jesus is all the time. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about or what we're doing. It's just who we are as teachers, and the kids come to expect us to talk about it all the time. Yeah. And
the parents seem cool with it, right? I haven't had any parents really.
I have not.
You guys talk about Jesus too much. because anybody can come here. We're really upfront about what we believe in, what we're going to teach your kids.
Right. And I think that's one of the greatest opportunities that we have at Windsor Christian Academy is that we don't have just church-going families here.
Right.
We have a lot of families that aren't church-going, and I've got kids in my 8th grade class that aren't believers. And I know that, and I acknowledge that, and I tell them, I'm so thankful you're here, and I hope that you wake up in the middle of the night one time, and realize that when you need Jesus all along, we've been telling you He's there for you. So I love that.
Yep.
So those are some things that I'm really excited about Windsor Christian Academy. Yeah.
Cool. And I think the small, probably thinking with bigger schools, it's harder to have that intimacy. So just kind of being a smaller school allows for that smaller. I had a dad one time. I guess we've had other kids in your classes too. So we get emails from Mrs. Kiff, and she lets us know how things are going, and we don't just get a report card, we get a report, you know?
Right.
And so one dad was like, man, she tells me so much stuff. It's like overwhelming, you know? I'm like, well, she just loves your kid, and, you know, that's where we're at. So, you know, she doesn't want to raise your kid. She wants you to do that, but she wants to help whatever way.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, cool. So what are some of the cons? What can we do better at Windsor Christian Academy, or just,
you know, I think there's a couple things that come to mind that I would, I guess, classify under cons. One is, and I sent my own boys here. So as I said, I have two boys. They both went to school here. Lucas started before I worked here, so that was certainly intentional to have him come to a Christian school. We stayed here, had the opportunity to stay here once I started teaching. So they came because I was here as well. Would we have been here the whole time? Who knows? But so Lucas started here before I was teaching here. I think that I will sometimes even talk to my children, Lucas and Wilson, or kids in my class, that you're one of the reasons your parents have you is, of course, they want you to have the Christian education. There's that piece of it. But they do want you in a bit of a bubble, and that's okay. And let me explain to you why that is. I don't want you to be living an unreal life. Like, we have to live in this world. We don't need to be of the world, but we're living in the world. And it's a safe place to raise your kids and to really build them up in foundational truths, surround them with people that love them. Hopefully have them in an environment that is kinder. You know, I mean, kids are kids, right? So it does remove some of the, some of the bad, let's say, or some of the darkness, or some of the experiences they're going to have. They just maybe don't have as much of it. They have some of it, but not as much. So they're just a little bit sheltered, which I think is great. Yeah. On the flip side is this isn't always reality, right? So when I think about my experience in Healdsburg and on the school board, what I see there with the population is not what I see here with our population. We have diversity in our school, and I'm so thankful for that. What we don't really have is a real economically diverse group. Now, it's not a bunch of rich parents, and that's for sure. You know, this isn't the school that they send the rich kids to. And there are parents that are sacrificing tremendously to have their kids here to pay that tuition. But it's still not the socially or the economically diverse group of people that you're going to probably live among when you leave this school. So in one hand, that would be a con. So I don't, my kids did fine going, when they went to Healdsburg High School. There was not a shock in a lot of ways. I don't mean just socially or culturally or economically. That was a great fit for them. It's not like the kids leave here and we're paralyzed. We don't know how to function. I'm just saying it's not a real representation of the community in which we live. So that could be a negative. Okay. The other, I would say, con is we gear our education programs to challenge students, right? So you've had kids go through the school. It's a push. We're teaching them a lot at a high level, and that's what we teach to is the students that we're pushing them to do their very best. And sometimes it's a reach for the kids. And we don't have services for students, right? So if you have any kind of a challenge in your learning, sometimes even socially, they don't have to be academic challenges, we don't really have the resources for you. And as teachers, I don't have my teaching credential. I did not go through special education training, and as all general education teachers do. You don't have to be special ed to get special ed training. So I didn't have that. So I rely on my people skills, or how would I want my child to be treated in this situation, or what if this was my child, what kind of game plan would I come up with, what strategy would I use? So that's where I employ those things, because I've been a mom long enough and been around enough kids to know we don't have that kind of training and we don't have those services for those students. So as much as parents want their kids to be here because it's a Christian environment, it's a safe environment, they know what they're getting most of the time. It's not a fit for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think as administration and teachers, we need to be willing to say that. And as parents, they need to be willing to say, you don't have the services that I need. That's you, and I need to go and do what my child needs for me. And the parents have to advocate for those kids.
Yeah.
They can't really advocate for their kids here and say, we need services, we need this. We don't have that to offer.
Right.
And so that can be tough sometimes. It can be tough as a teacher. I'm sure it's tough as administrators. And it can be really tough as parents to have to make those choices. But again, I've seen working in Healdsburg as a board member, the tremendous resources they have available for students that need them. And that's where parents need to have their kids, where the resources are at some point.
Okay.
At some point. So those are the two things that really pop into my mind, maybe as areas that we just don't rise above maybe other schools.
Yeah. And that's, it's good, Jamie, because I feel like as a church, our calling is to help those on the margins that do struggle, and yet we're not really set up as a school to do that. So and you can only do so much.
Absolutely.
You know? So
absolutely. I think you have to be who you are and what you are and do the best you can, but you cannot be everything to everybody.
You got to know where the line is.
You have to know where the line is. And you know what? And when you cross that line, you're not making the right choice for that family or that student or the teacher or your school. So many times you can cross the line for good, right? I oftentimes think we're crossing the line for bad, right? But you can cross the line with the best intentions, honest and godly intentions, but crossing that line still shouldn't have crossed. It was not a wise choice. Yeah. It just wasn't a wise choice. And it can be detrimental to a teacher and to a student and to a family and to the school. Yeah. So it's really, those are tough. Yeah. Those are tough decisions, but those are my.
Yeah. And I think back to your first con of kind of being a sheltered environment. I used to think of homeschooling kind of this way as well, where it's even more sheltered, but are young people building immunities to deal with the pandemics of the world, basically.
Sure.
And I kind of look at it that way too for our Christian school, with my kids, where we keep them pretty sheltered, right? And so it could be a pretty big adjustment getting into the real world.
Right. Although I will say, again, having had two boys here and having them go to a public high school and hearing from their teachers, because the kids, the Windsor Christian Academy students stay together, right, as cohorts from class to class. I mean, it's the same kids from your first grade class or in your eighth grade class, give or take a few, right? You have all kinds of personalities. You have all kinds of personalities. Kids with social quirks, kids that just have a hard time getting along, whatever it is, right? So it is kind of a microcosm of society in that classroom. Yeah. And so we learn to love each other, warts and all, right? So you definitely don't have, I mean, they're homogeneous in one sense, but they're pretty heterogeneous in a lot of other senses. You're dealing with some wild and crazy personalities, right? Yeah. So, and there's a lot of empathy that the kids learn, and there's a lot of social skills that the kids learn. That that's just Susie, or that's just Freddie, and they come to love them no matter what. Yeah. So when they get into a public school or high school or out and about, they have acceptance for kids in ways that most kids don't have. They have that social acceptance. So that is a real gift that I don't know if a lot of people recognize. When I give kindergarten tours, because I love to do that when we have kindergarten open house, I often will share that. You have your kids here for a lot of reasons. One thing I want you to know, when your kids get out, socially, they're going to be the student that the teacher can rely on to work with so-and-so because they're the tough one to work with, or they're the odd one to work with, or they're nobody will really work with them because they make fun of them, or whatever. Those will not be the kids from Windsor Christian Academy most of the time that are making fun. They're the ones the teacher can rely on and realize the maturity that they have socially and relationally with those other students. And that's that's worth its weight in gold in a sense too.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Things to improve on? Do you see areas there? I know we talked about just some of the communication between the board and the teachers, and because we don't have a teachers union, and an elected school board, and so it's not as democratic as a public school system.
Sure.
So
right. I think you can always improve on communication. Yeah. I think it's even just in this time right now, right? So we originally were going to open. Of course, we can't open now. I wouldn't say that I know exactly what it's going to look like. I'm not saying that administration knows exactly what it's going to look like right now either. But sometimes, you refer to the parent, boy, that Mrs. Kiff's always pushing out this information because I like information. I like to know. I would rather say, this letter is to tell you I don't know, but I'm telling you I don't know.
Right.
And when I know, I'll let you know. Instead of this,
do they know?
Crickets chirping, right? So I think communication can always be done better. I think what we could do differently. I know that we have really one administrator, not including the school board, but I don't really consider them administrators. Right. I think of them more as a governing body. That's a lot. It's a lot for one person. We don't have a really big school. I understand that it's not necessarily supported, but you've got one administrator that is chief cook and bottle washer, and that can be hard too. I think we need to recognize and honor that, and it's nice to have a pastor that can step in when needed. But it would be nice to not have to have only one administrator. I don't know. That's just I throw that out there to say, if there's one thing when I look at the whole situation, it would be nice to have another go-to person. Even if it was just someone that had a different sets of responsibilities that didn't always have to land on our one administrator.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, and he's thorough.
He's amazing. Yeah, our principal, Tad Tice, is amazing. I mean, he should win a prize because the thing about him is he's so. Talk about a line, right? He has a very clear line. But when you're approaching that line, he's one to say, we just need to talk because you're approaching the line. I want you to know. When you step over the line, he's like, we need to talk. You've stepped over the line. It's the same. I would be like, okay, don't step over the line. It's getting close. And if you stepped out, I'd be like, you just get out. So he has that evenness about him and that wisdom. We're so blessed. You had said how God has preserved our school. I think there's a variety of reasons why he's done that. And he's put key people in the school to help preserve them. Jeff Marshall was one. Tad Tice is certainly another one. And there's a variety of others. But we're so fortunate that
he's very predictable.
He's very predictable.
Yeah. Which you want in a leader,
And I don't have to really I know that I can do A, B, and C because that will be okay. I know I'm within A, B, and C, knowing Tad. When there's D, I know to ask. I'm not there. I just know. Partly I've been here for a while. Partly I know him well enough to know that this is something I need to run by him. This is something I know that he would be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I think he's a good communicator in that sense. But again, the structure of the school doesn't lend itself to that. But the more, the more opportunity there could be for that, or I don't know.
I'm hearing you.
It might even end up on your desk, right? So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that and I think about too, there were times when and this is what I'm thinking about that when I say end up on your desk. It wasn't too long ago, we had a batch of 8th grade boys, right? That needed a little more guidance. And you were willing to meet with some of those boys and to kind of hold them accountable. So sometimes even just something like that, instead of it having to always be that same person who they have to either go down to see for good or bad or whatever, it's nice to have somebody else in that mix. Just for support and for maybe different perspective even. So that was a great example of that. You were willing to take on, one or two young men that really needed a little bit of extra, just checking in, like I'm checking in on you. So those kinds of things, we just have to remember that is a need in our school with the administration design that we have, and to not lose sight of that and to look for opportunities. So,
and probably what helps Tad as well is having a staff that's mature and doesn't need a lot of hand holding. Like you guys are awesome, right? So that's a huge part of
it's true.
Administrating is staff issues, and Tad doesn't have a whole lot of that. So
they're very. I'm like, yeah, it's true, thank you, but they're very. We have a lot of wise, mature, teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It is awesome.
Blessing
to be a part of, for sure.
Cool. And maybe being on the Healdsburg School Board maybe helps you see some of that. So let's talk about that a little bit. Healdsburg School Board. Why did you get involved in that? And what is the process of getting onto a school board, a public
this is very timely because it's time to rerun for a lot of school boards will have seats available.
Okay.
Our school board will have three positions up.
This coming November on the ballot?
This coming November on the ballot, yeah. So our school board has 5 positions, 5 trustees. 3 of us are up, our seats are up. And they're 4-year terms. So 4 years, I was like, 4 years? I didn't read the fine print. 4 years.
Is it paid?
No.
It's free.
It's paid in joy.
Paid in joy.
Yes.
All right. We're going to talk about that joy.
Yes, we're going to talk about joy. So it's a 4-year term. And you run now, and I encourage you to run because here's why. It's a great way to be involved in your community. That's why I ran. I ran for a couple reasons. One, because I love the experience that my 2 boys had at Healdsburg High School. It was stellar. It was awesome. And I was so overjoyed with the opportunities that they were given, the education that they were given. I wanted to kind of be a part of that. I wanted to I felt like I could make a contribution, and I was inspired to be a part of it. On the flip side, there were a few things I was like, not so sure I like that. And if I don't like it, then maybe I need it. And I think I don't do a whole lot of whining. If I whine, it's to Martin. I don't do a lot of public whining, but he hears my fair share of whining. And I think he probably said, then maybe you should run for school board. And I was like, oh, he's like, no, really. Today's the last day to get your application in. I think he told me that at one evening, the next day was the last day. He's like, so maybe you should do it.
Yeah.
Like, well, maybe I should. So I did. So all of that together, in overnight, I talk with my hands a lot. Overnight, I think I slept on it, decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. And one, because I really wanted to support our community. I think more people should get involved. More people need to serve in their community, for sure. And I was feeling that. I was feeling inspired. And I was also feeling like if there's some things I'm not so sure about, then I want to be involved in where we go from here. So that was it. It's not hard to get involved. It's not hard. You apply. It's literally an application. You have to write up a little bio because they put it in the...
Where do you get the application?
You go down to the county registrar's office.
Okay.
Ours is down in that administrative circle, not far from In-N-Out Burger, whatever that is right down there.
Okay.
That's where we were. I think that's where we were, the county registrar. I think that's what it was.
Yep.
Yeah. You fill out a little blurb about yourself because it goes in the election pamphlet. And pretty much that's it. And then you have to be willing to do these kinds of things.
So you got elected.
I got elected. I was 3rd for the 3rd seat.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that it matters, but I was 3rd.
What do you think what helped you get elected?
I have to attribute a lot of it to having a family name, that a family that's been in Healdsburg for a really long time, that have been involved in a lot of different things. And
respected.
And respected, yeah. The Kiff family is pretty awesome. My in-laws, Rini and Joel Kiff are amazing people. And Joel taught at Healdsburg High for years and years and years and years until he retired from there. And so did Rini. She was involved in the school district.
Okay.
She ran the farmers market for years and very involved in their community and just tremendous people. And so I can't deny that when you're looking at the pamphlet and you're like, your ballot, and you're like, oh, Kiff. I know a Kiff, right? So I'm not going to lie. That's probably was definitely on my side. But I do think that I'm always very honest and very candid, and I don't have a hard time telling somebody what I honestly think. I'm not one that is going to paint a picture because you want this picture painted. I will tell you what I think, respectfully, but I'm not going to be someone I'm not. So I think can be refreshing sometimes. So I think that's why I got elected with the Kiff last name for sure. Though I have to, I have to say that's probably
so
true.
let's talk about some of the challenges. So you get in there. Like, what was some of the learning curve there? Like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. What was some of the...
I wasn't expecting to know so little about public education, about all the different things that they are required to do, the systems they have in place, the kind of the bureaucracy of it all in a sense. I would say maybe the steps. Hoops is a bad word. I don't mean it like that, but I mean this is the way it goes, and this is how and when we test, and this is the program we have to offer, and we can't. And it's like it's this giant puzzle piece. You have to have all the pieces of the puzzle. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that public education did all of this stuff. I just had no idea. Which is on the end of it, I have such a tremendous respect and admiration for public education. And for Healdsburg in particular, because it's what I know, I'm just in awe of the work that they do and what they do for the students that walk through those doors every day. Much more than I could have ever imagined. The programs that they are either required to offer, choose to offer, the way they feed children. I mean, they feed children every day. I didn't know that. I didn't know children got fed at school. I mean, I know I know when the office would call and say, your child owes us $10 because they got salad bar, right? And I know that kind of feeding, but I mean providing for families and providing for children that don't have those provisions. And just the heart that Healdsburg education has, Healdsburg teachers and administrators have for the population in Healdsburg. It's tremendous. The other thing I was really surprised about is how long it takes for something to happen. You could have a great idea today, and maybe it won't take months. We could still be talking about having the same conversation 6, 8, 9 months from now. So that can be frustrating. We're used to hear, like I might say, I want to do this, and tomorrow I'm doing it in my classroom. So that's tricky. The wheels turn very slowly. They're very methodical. They're very purposeful. But it takes too long for me. I'm like, come on, people. We know this is a good idea. We need to make it happen. I don't want a study group. I don't want to talk to 14 different people. I want to make it happen now because we know it's good. But you're accountable. So you have to go through those protocols in order to make something happen, because it's not just that you're serving the community and you just don't get to make those decisions on a whim. And sometimes it can be perceived that way. What has been hardest about being on the personally is I remember we had a special board meeting, and we were in a very so it wasn't a formal setting. We weren't in a board meeting in the sense that we were up on the dais and we was having that kind of a formal. We just were having it was in the cafeteria or something. And I remember saying to someone, well, I really would appreciate just a little bit of trust, trust that and the gal said, why would I trust you? I don't even know you. And I remember thinking, wow, I never would have come at somebody with that comment. I am such naturally a trusting person. Like, I'm going to trust you until you lose my trust. But at that moment, I realized it's kind of an uphill battle. You cannot trust me because I've lost your trust, but to not trust me because you don't know me, that was kind of eye-opening to me. I thought that was interesting. And from then on, I realized that no matter what you say or do, there's always going to be people that think that you don't have somebody else's best interest at heart, or worse, they're going to hear something that is wrong or contrary and take it as the gospel truth. And you may never have the opportunity to set that record straight. And that's really frustrating. Like at a board meeting, there's public comment. If you've ever been to one, you can stand up and say whatever you want. And really, we are not in a position to correct you. That's not the structure of a board meeting or a city council meeting. And that's really hard, because now all that information goes out there and that's floating around as truth, when that is not. It's the farthest cry from that.
Yeah.
So those are hard things. Again, it's communication, right? But you can't communicate necessarily with the whole city or the whole,
Yeah.
You've got.
So you become very vulnerable.
You become very vulnerable. Yeah, and I'm not used to being in that position, but that's okay. I grew a lot because of that.
Okay.
I think that we have an incredible superintendent, and
That's Chris, right?
Chris Vanden Heuvel. He was amazing, and would often have to tell me, "You need to take the high road." And I'm pretty much a high road person, but you throw a tomato. I'm okay the first tomato. About the third tomato, I'm like, somebody go get a crate of tomatoes. I'm throwing back. So it was a real growth experience for me to be able to do that. But it's great to be in public service. Behind the scenes what's happening, and it's good and it's right, but you have to be able to block the rest of that out. Because I am a pleaser. I think I didn't realize that as much until I was in a situation where I had to look like I was maybe not doing what was best or right by most, and be accused of, not being transparent or untrustworthy by virtue of not being known, those kinds of things. So that was an adjustment. But all in all, I wish more people would serve. I am not planning to run again for the reason that more people need to serve. More people need to be in their community and be doing that for years, so that they can have a voice, that they can understand, they can have a deeper understanding of the way their city is run or the way their schools are run. More people need to do that, and they will be better informed. So when they hear something that makes them go, I've learned to ask a lot more questions. I've learned to say, instead of assuming, I'm going to ask. And I think we would all be better citizens if we would choose to ask more questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
So with the COVID thing going on, where does a local school board play in making the decision to do at-home learning, or keeping mandates, or leaving it up to a local jurisdiction? Is that something the superintendent makes that decision on? Is that something the school board makes a decision on?
Well, whatever Governor Newsom says, it starts there, right? If he hasn't made a decision, then that would go to Steve Harrington, our county supervisor, right? Board of Education, education supervisor.
Okay.
Can't think of his official title, sorry. And then he would draw the line on that, given input from physicians, whatnot, the county decision makers. So our county superintendent, Dr. Harrington, makes those decisions. There are some things that we would make as an administrative level, like Chris Vanden Heuvel as the superintendent would make the decision on. There's not a lot that we have to make a decision on. We more have to kind of give our blessing to things. We're giving our blessing more than we are saying absolutely not or absolutely yes.
Okay.
We have discussions about it. Here's what we're planning to do. Does that seem to meet with your approval? So I guess we are saying we give you our approval, but we're not planning those kinds of things. We're the aerial view, right? We're looking down saying, as long as everybody's safe, tell me what you're going to do to be safe. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
We give you that.
Okay.
We give you our okay. So we're not in the nitty gritty. What kind of sanitizer are you going to be using? How many sanitizing sweeps are you going to have throughout the day?
Right.
It's just, here's our plan. Does our plan sound agreeable? And we'll say yes or no.
And then if I remember right, back in the last school year, you dealt with a junior high teacher that I can't remember the whole context of that, but it was some stuff you guys had to get involved with his being in the union, but then, and we don't have to get into that. And the other one was the economic kind of disparity in Healdsburg.
Right.
And there were some issues there. Yeah.
Yes. And again, it's one of those things where it was equity. We had a lot of discussion around equity. It's interesting because the school becomes the kind of the catalyst for change in the community, which I didn't really know that happened. I don't think I would have thought about it being the school. Part of it is the leadership, I think, of our school, with Chris Vanden Heuvel wanting to be a catalyst for change, being willing to take that on. Really having a heart for if there's an issue, that let's go ahead and face that and address that.
Yeah.
There were we were called racists. There were a lot of things, right? A lot of those languages being thrown around. The bottom line is, were we serving our students the best we could serve our students? We had programs in place that we thought were good and were addressing the needs of our students. Upon looking at those, I think what we saw was, I would have to say, in my opinion, they weren't always wrong, but there was a better way to be doing them. They weren't serving the student the way that the student should be served. With that being said, there was a lot of credibility and rationale behind some of the things that were being done in the schools. Even having two elementary schools, we had a charter school, right? We had Healdsburg Charter, and then we had Healdsburg Elementary. Same campus, 2 programs. Well, when you looked in the classrooms, a lot of the students in Healdsburg Elementary School were our Latino students. There were Latino students in the charter school, but more of them were the Caucasian students. So upon looking at the programs, they didn't look representative of, they weren't equal in representation, right? Were there some good reasons for that? In my opinion, as a parent, as a educator, I could see the value in the 2 different kinds of programs that were kind of being run. I think there was value in both of them. However, it's not always perceived that way. So we need to look and say, could we be doing something differently or doing it better? And if the answer is yes, then that needs to be done. And I think that's what happened, is that we could be doing better. So let's do better. And now we have no more charter. We have 1 Healdsburg Elementary School.
Okay.
So it's, again, does it have to be right or wrong?
And that was probably met with some resistance.
It was tremendous. It was tremendous. The conversations were tremendous. They were hard, but they were good. And I think we're going to continue to have those. We're having racial conversations now. What does it look like? What does it look like when we represent and talk about different cultures and different races? Are we having those conversations the best way we can? I don't think we are. I think of my own classroom. This made me think. We do 8th grade interviews, right? We had a parent ask, do we have these racial issues here? Are we having trouble? And I said, I don't see trouble, but I'm a white woman. So I'm not having white woman trouble, right? So this individual was a man of color. You tell me what I need to know. Are you having issues? Are your children having issues? That's the question. I need to turn that back to you because I'm having no trouble as a 53-year-old white girl. So, but I need to know.
Right.
If you are, you tell me. And we'll do something about that. But that made me think too, the novels that I teach, the novels that the students read in my classroom, they're all white authors. They're women and men. I don't have any African American authors. I don't have any Native American authors. I don't have any Latino authors. So is that right or wrong? You get to decide. My thinking is, well, what could I do to make that better? So those are the kinds of conversations I think we need to be having. It's not the right or wrong, but it's what could we do to be better. So I'm looking at new authors, right? I want to have a better representation of the world we live in. So those are the conversations I think we need to have in our own minds. And the equity issue started, in Healdsburg. We had that conversation. I think it was healthy and it was good. It's still ongoing. Now we have a racial conversation to be having, even beyond that. I think it's important. And I did not expect the schools to be the place to kind of start some of those conversations. But it makes sense. It does make sense because it's where our children are and it's our children's future. So that's where those changes need to happen. So
good.
Everybody run for your school board or your city council.
Yeah.
Or something.
Were there people like when you got into it where you were like friends with, and then like there were some decisions you had to make or had, because your decisions are public, right?
Right.
So did you have any like, man, Mrs. Jackson doesn't like me anymore because.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow,
okay.
Right.
That's got to be hard.
That is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there can be some mending once you get off the school board.
Well, I think it's one of those things where you
need some tomatoes or
yeah. I think it becomes People just believe different things. They have different things that they're passionate about, and sometimes we just don't align. And some people, some people can't agree to disagree. And I'm not sure agreeing to disagree is always the right thing either, because there's some things that are just in some people's minds. Well, I can't see your side because your side is just wrong. So sometimes it's hard to find that.
Yeah. And it's trust too. So I do sympathize with like Chris, the superintendent, some other things when it dealt with staff issues that your hands are tied. You can't talk about staff. No. And so there's just a trust. Then there's the trust issue.
Right.
So like even being a pastor, there's only so much we can talk about before we cross the line. Right. And so you either trust us or not with some of the decisions, So I see some of that too in that system.
And I just say, you stand by your decision. I feel confident in the decisions we've always made, but there will always be the unknown because there are things you can't share, right? And those are the things you just have to know in your heart of hearts that
just doing the right thing,
right?
Best we can.
As hard as it is, yeah. So, but it's been a real blessing to serve for sure.
Cool.
And public schools, a shout out to public schools.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah,
that's really neat.
They do amazing things.
So your horizon's been widened through this whole process.
It has been. Like I said,
It's cool.
It's been great. It's been a growing experience. And hopefully there's been some positive contribution that's been made.
Yeah, I bet there has. All right, let's get into raising boys. So you got 3 boys, Martin, Lucas, and Wilson.
I do.
Let's talk about those boys. I have that fun with that because now Jill raising,
she has 3 boys
helping me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how's that going? You've raised 2, and Martin's a rodeo clown, and so let's start with Martin. Let's talk about. So you married a rodeo clown. So this guy's the guy in the ring that basically helps get the bull away from the rider to keep him safe, and so he's trying to attract
He's trying to get a 2,000-pound animal to run at him.
Yes.
On purpose.
And you knew that going into the marriage.
I did.
Was it attractive to you? Were you like, man, this guy?
No, that did not flip my switch.
Okay.
Martin is so kind.
Yeah.
And he's just such a kind person. That is just what did it. He just is just a wonderful man. The rodeo clown thing was like kind of wild. Bullfighter, rodeo clown. It's a great conversation because you can never not be somewhere and not throw that out.
Yeah.
And have everything be fine.
Yeah,
it just ends the awkwardness.
It goes somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's great to take along because it's like, okay, I'm just going to have my quick conversation because as soon as he comes and you learn what he does, I'm just going to go, I'll be grazing at the snack table.
See, I want to tell a Martin story and I can't because I wanted to stick to you right now.
Well, you'll have to have a special stories segment where you just have a whole bunch of different people come in and you just, like 5 minutes with so-and-so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did know what I was getting myself into. He was a full-time bullfighter, rodeo clown, professional cowboy when I met him. Yeah.
Cool.
So I knew.
All right.
And I loved it.
And that's a traveling lifestyle too. So
and so we were blessed because I'm the teacher that when families take their kids out of school, ever done that? I'm like, okay, that sounds great. Just make sure they get their homework turned in.
Yep.
Because I'm the one that pulled my kids out of school when Martin would go to Wyoming. We're like, we're going to Wyoming with Dad. So pack your stuff. We're headed out. So we got to do tremendous road trips, and the boys still miss going to rodeos because he's now retired, and it's pretty sweet memories. Great family time. Great family time. And we did not do a lot of family trips growing up, and we certainly didn't do car trips because my dad's a retired pilot. So we flew everywhere. I mean, I would fly from San Luis Obispo to San Diego when I would go home from college, because it was so easy to do.
Yeah.
Why drive for 6 hours when I could fly for 20 minutes, right? So I didn't do car rides. So my kids are great travelers, and we got to see some great country.
That's cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just had to trust, I really never worried. The only time I'd get worried would be like, I knew he was coming home on Monday night. He said he'd be here around 9 and he's not home yet. Now it's 11. Those would
the traveling.
Yeah. I really did
Wears
not
on
get
you.
worked up about what he did, because he would always say, I'm a professional. And he would say this to people. He wouldn't talk me down off a ledge, because I really was, God gave me great confidence and acceptance and peace about it. I know what I'm doing. And so I'm not going to be foolish, but I have a job to do, and I know how to do my job. Doesn't mean accidents don't happen. But
We're all kind of running away from a bull in a sense in all of our jobs, right?
pretty much. I have
At
a
least he
rogue
knew-
junior hire.
At least he knows who the bull is. You know?
Yeah. The one with the horn. Stay away from that one. So yeah, it's been a great, entertaining life, and he is, he's made it very fun.
Yeah. Now he settled down, doing welding,
Yes. Yeah.
a lot of jobs.
Yeah. Once the kids,
Trades.
Yeah. Once the kids were like doing Little League and, Dad, can you coach? And, you always had to say no to that. When they got into high school, he didn't want those opportunities to go by. So he coached the boys' football teams and was the golf coach. And so he just decided he wanted to wind that down. And the traveling got to, it's hard to be away from home that long, especially when you're running out of time with your kids. There's certain things you just do not want to miss. So, yeah, so it's fun life.
Yeah.
Good time.
That's cool. So think about a mom who's listening to this and raising boys and pulling their hair out. They don't respect me. Well, all the different things that a mom could wrestle through. What's your advice for a mom raising boys?
Well, first of all, God knew I would not do well with girls, so he gave me boys. So I think that was definitely a God thing. I don't put up with a lot of moaning, groaning, frivolous, unnecessary drama. Like, that's just it wasn't who I was, and I don't do well with that kind of stuff. With my own kids, I can handle it fine in the classroom because they're not my kids, right? I'm an observer. So God gave me boys. So I felt equipped. Here's what I've always wanted my boys to be. I've always wanted them, of course, I wanted them to honor the Lord. And I would always pray that they would be men that would bring glory to God, right? And that doesn't mean they're always going to make the right choices. So I'm not throwing that out there, because I would never put that.
Right.
I get it. I've been there, done that, right? So I'm just so thankful for grace.
Real world.
Yeah, real thankful for grace. So, but, godly men, warts and all, right? Mistakes and all. And that I always told my kids, you always need to be respectful. You need to be respectful of everybody. Always. You always need to be respectful. Not be respectful is not an option. So we ran a pretty tight ship at my house. I mean, I could probably be viewed as an authoritarian. This was like, we don't talk about it. The answer's no. We didn't have a lot of this. Well, let's talk. No, the answer's no, and I'm not going to tell you. It's just no. Yeah. So we're done. Part of it was respect. Like, you need to honor my word. If it's important enough, I will tell you, there's a way to ask a question, but we're not going to whine and you're going to ask me 40 times. So they grew up knowing what respect looked like, I think, because we were purposeful with that. And I knew, with Martin being gone a fair amount of time, I had to be the one that had that control. It wasn't like, well, when your dad gets home. My mom grew up with a husband that was a pilot that was gone, right? An extended amount of time. I think I just knew what that looked like. So it had to stop with me, and I had to lay down that line, right? I had to make them know where that line was. And Martin was a great partner in that, but there were times when it was just only me. But so they always had to be respectful. There was no back talk, right? We didn't have any of those shenanigans. And I always told my boys, even as they got older, that I want you to be the nice guy. Like, it's okay to be the nice guy. I think men, you have to be this like I'm going to just whatever it takes to be the dude. And I'm like, you know what? Let someone else be the dude. You be the nice guy. It's okay. And Martin would always say to the boys as they're walking out the door, or we were headed to school, hey, be nice to somebody today. Be nice to somebody today. Every day, it's what he said. Hey, find somebody to be nice to today. So respect, be the nice guy. That was kind of the formula. There was no magic and a lot of prayer, of course.
When
but
they
parents
crossed
being
the line,
parents.
what was some of your recourse Did you just have a bigger paddle? Like, how did you deal with, did it just pretty much, did they toe the line? Like for my kids, their spank right now is their pocketbook, right? Their financial pressure is kind of what helps them.
Right. Yeah, there was definitely, like, I never put my kids on restriction because if something really great came up and they would have to be on restriction for it, I always thought, like, if someone's going to offer to take you to Tahoe in their private jet and you're on restriction, I'm going to have to say no to that because you're on restriction. Yeah. So I never got put on restriction as a kid, and I said to Martin, we're not going to put our kids on. I would like to not put our kids on restriction because here's why. Yeah. But they would be like, you've lost that privilege. You've lost that opportunity. Usually it was privilege or an opportunity. We were spankers when the kids were little, but I'll tell you, I don't remember spanking my kids more than a couple times, and I don't think they probably remember either. So it was mostly things taken away, but it didn't really happen. It just really didn't happen all that often. It really didn't. When it did, when the line was crossed, then it was pretty severe. Yeah, it was severe enough that it was car keys for a month. A month without your car when you're 16 is like, Jesus, come now, because my life is over.
It's gone.
So
what do I do?
Yeah. So I think really at the beginning, it all starts at the beginning. If you haven't laid down the law, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but here's when I say no, that's what I mean. Martin's much better at that. I'm kind of wishy-washy. I will confess, because he's going to watch this and he'll say, you sounded so, I am wishy-washy. I agree with that. He's much better. He's probably a much better parent. Martin, you're a much better parent than I am. I'm trying to make it sound good. You have to start from the beginning. You really do. Yeah. But now, it's never too late, but you cannot be your child's friend. Your child needs a mom, and your child needs a dad, whether they're 5 or they're 15.
I'll have plenty of friends.
And I will say to my kids, I am not your friend. Someday I would like to be your friend, and that'd be great. But right now, I'm the only mom you have. So I'm the one that says no, or you can't do that, you can't go there, or we don't. This is not what we do, and here's why. There's a time when you explain, of course. So I think that is probably my premise, is you're their mom first and you're not their friend as much as you'd like to be. And the downfall I see with a lot of parents is they want to please their children. You need to care less what your kids think about you. Yeah. I don't care. I have to make the decision because I'm the only mom they have. Yeah. So, and I don't care at what age they are, you're still the only mom they have, and you have to make that. Yeah. You just can't. It's not about that kind of relationship. It's about the parent-child relationship, because the rest of it will come. Yep.
We had a principal at Grace say, he'd tell the kids, I don't care what you think of me now. I care what you think of me when you're 30. You know? And I think that's the kind of that long-term. Right. Yeah. And I sometimes, if you're a mom listening to this and like, I haven't laid a good foundation, because I'll teach parenting classes and I'll have parents come to me afterward and go, what do I do now? Because I did not do the first 8 years correctly. Right. I just, have that conversation with your child. Just say, hey, there's some things I didn't do right as your parent. Right. Please forgive me for that. And here's how we're going to move forward. Right. We're going to start a new path. And yeah, we're going to work on this together, but I need to do this right. Because like you said, I'm your parent, Right. So. Well, I've had to do that too. I've gone to the kids and said that, when I said yes to that, or when I allowed that, or when I didn't speak out about that, that was a wrong decision. So I'm going to tell you now, next time that's not going to happen. And when your kids are old, they need to know that you make those mistakes too, and that you're willing to correct that behavior. So it's never easy. But I think it's that role. You have to be the parent first and not care about being your child's friend. And they can be as mad as they want. And my kids they never would say hurtful things. My kids have never been kids that would say hurtful things to me as a parent. I'm sure they probably thought a lot of, wicked things, but they just never did that. So I didn't have to wrestle with, oh gosh, they just called me that, or they hate me. I never had that feeling. I just knew that they were upset, but I wasn't hurt by their words.
And so that made it probably a little bit easier to not want to give in. But I agree with you. Wherever you are, you start.
Just got to start.
Yeah.
So Lucas and Wilson, where are they at? And then they're at home this summer, but what's school looking like
so
for
Lucas
them?
is in his last year at Chico State as an ag business major.
Okay.
He's 22, going to be 23. Oh my gosh. And then Wilson is entering his second year at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, Martin and I's alma mater, which is, we know it's fun to go down there because it's like, oh, remember this? I'm sure the kids hate it. Remember this? Oh, this wasn't there. Remember when we went? And they're like, oh my gosh, la, la, la. But yeah, so he'll be in his second year, and he's in the ag department, also in the College of Agriculture, studying wine and viticulture.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got 2 ag major boys.
Yeah, but what's going on now? So will Lucas finish at Chico State with online, or what? Chico's in a different count,
right. So they announced all CSUs went online, right? So before they got out last year, so he will be back. He will go back to Chico. He'll be in his apartment at Chico, finishing up. He'll either finish in December or possibly in June. So may have half a year or a full year. I'm hoping he goes a full year and just takes some extra classes and enjoys that. It's it's
so he'll still be up there.
Fun. He'll be up there doing his thing, having school. Right.
But it'll be online.
His will be 100% online. Wilson will be down in San Luis Obispo, so he's going to go back. We think the kids need to go and live their lives. That's us. Other parents, you do what is best for you, but this is still their college experience, so go and make the most of it.
Yeah.
So he'll be down in San Luis Obispo, and he'll have some. It depends on how his classes shake out. Could be some in person if they're labs or hands-on things that they just can't replicate, and then some will be digital learning. Okay. So it might be a mishmash for him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But he's going.
They're both going.
When do they leave?
Lucas will leave probably sometime in August, and Wilson will leave sometime in September.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Yeah. So it's been sweet to have them home, because I would imagine this will be the last summer that
have them both together.
We're all together. Yeah. But, your kids go away and they come back and they've changed and you've changed, and God's designed it well that the kids, they leave, because they've grown up and they're ready to do their own thing, and you hope that you've done your job well enough and with God's grace, and
they're going to walk with God.
That's right. Yep. Might be a windy path, but again, as long as you walk with God.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. All right, man. Jami, we've knocked some things out today. So cool. Good to spend time with you.
It's great to spend time with you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Learned a lot about a lot of things. So hopefully this was helpful for people, and maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Keep it up. Women. It's very informative. It's fun. It's fun to hear the backstories of people and kind of where they're at and how they got where they're going, and it's fun. So thanks for doing it.
All right. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Great. Thanks,
Appreciate
Jami.
it.
All right. It's a wrap.